give a warm round of applause to Ms. Kadambari for her presentation on Benami Transactions Prohibition Bill.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to discuss with you the Benami Transactions Prohibition Bill, which is one of the twin legislations along with the Prevention of Money Laundering Act intended to curb unaccounted money growth in India. The very recent case which has brought to the light the Benami transactions and its role in the growth of black money economy in India is the Adarsh Society scam in Mumbai, where about 35 units were found to be owned in Benami names. Even in the 2G and 3G scams, the telecom companies were found to be fronting for others. Various legislations have been brought about. However, there has been a total failure to deal with the Benami menace, which has grown instead of decreasing. The Benami transactions and the black money economy, the growth of black money economy in India has been a blot on the Indian economy and has been perceived in a negative manner by the international community. What do we mean by a Benami transaction? It's a Persian word, Benami. Be means without, Nami means name. So, in effect, it is a property for which consideration has been paid by someone else and the recorded owner is someone else. So, in effect, the recorded owner is not the real owner. Needless to say, a Benami property is held for the benefit of the ostensible owner and not the recorded owner. And sometimes there may be cases where the recorded owner may not be even aware that he is the holder of such a property. Benami transactions are the backbone of a parallel black money economy in India, and it has a very historical genesis. The reasons have been dubious as well as non-dubious for utilizing unaccounted money, which has continued and grown till date. However, there have been other social reasons, such as holding the asset in the name of a relative, non-earning relative, legitimate tax planning, socio-cultural practice, which is very prevalent in India, of holding properties along with other members of the family. Then there are, of course, superstitions. Some people feel that owning property in someone's name may prove to be more lucky. So there are several social and economical reasons besides the dubious reasons for holding Benami properties. The genesis of Benami transactions has been recorded as far back in 1978 in Mr. Justice Hyde's note. In 1854, the Apex Court, under the British rule, gave a recognition to the Benami custom because they felt that holding Benami transactions was an important custom which was part and parcel of the Indian economy. In 1882, Sections 81 and 82 of the Indian Trust Act were incorporated so as to give a legislative recognition to the practice of Benami transaction. However, the menace proved to be more than the social practice, than upholding the social practice. And in 1976, for the first time, Section 281A was incorporated in Indian Tax Act, barring institution of suits with regard to Benami transactions. In 1988, Benami Transactions Prohibition Act was finally brought about by the Indian Parliament, which made Benami transactions an offence for the first time. Now, coming to the Benami Transactions Prohibition Act, besides making Benami transactions a criminal offence, the objectives with which the act was brought about were laudatory. That was to target flow of unaccounted money, to minimize income inequality, to facilitate equal opportunity, and to hit at concentration of wealth. However, due to the lack of inclination of the implementers or legislators to give effect to the legislation, the Act of 1988 failed miserably. In spite of lapse of 23 years, no rules whatsoever were implemented. It remained a paper legislation. No clarity was there on recovery procedure, punishment authorities, or confiscated properties, or no appellate mechanism was there. There was not even a clear distinction between dubious and non-dubious transactions. The only two clear exceptions were wife and unmarried daughter. So therefore, a lot of circumstances were just given a go by, which could have been covered under the exceptions. On account of the stagnancy in implementing the rules or the act Finally, the legislature, instead of bringing out rules under the Act of 1988, the Finance Ministry in Lok Sabha in August 2011 finally came out with Benami Transactions Prohibitions Bill in 2011. 2 years have already passed, although it has not become an enactment. However, the new bill has a lot of merits, and it's a step forward from where we were earlier. The highlights of the bill are: it clarifies and widens the scope of Benami transactions to include transactions by which property is held by a person other than in fiduciary capacity. So fiduciary capacity cases have been made an exception. Transactions made in fictitious names. Shadow ownership, where the recorded owner is not aware of or denies his ownership, has also been brought within the ambit of the Benami transactions. The proposed legislation makes Benami properties liable to be confiscated, creates wider exceptions. Instead of wife, the word spouse has been replaced, so there is some gender equality. Brothers, sisters, ascendants, descendants, all have been brought within the ambit of the proposed legislation. The bill restricts the real owner to recover such property or to retransfer such property to the beneficial owner. And it embodies and recognizes the concept of ostensible ownership under Section 41 of TPA. So therefore, there are cases where a person is not the recorded owner, however he acts as if he is the owner, and therefore sales are made to bona fide purchasers who purchase from that person thinking he is the real owner, and subsequently such sales are challenged, but which are protected under the proposed bill as well as the Section 41 of TPA. The Benami Transactions Prohibitions Bill also provides for the adjudicating authorities, which were missing in the earlier Act because rules were not formulated. The adjudicating authorities will have the same powers as a civil court for inspection, production of documents, issuance of commissions, etc. The imprisonment provided under this bill is 6 months to 2 years plus fine up to 25 years of the fair market value. The bill penalizes even those who give false information or abet such transactions with a fine up to 10% of the fair market value. So it also covers those cases where under the earlier Act, there were cases where a father would, out of love and affection for his son, would purchase a property in his son's name, and later on the son would try to oust the father from that very property. Then the father was left with no defense under the previous Act. However, this bill does cover all such cases as well. The bill, however, suffers from certain lacunae, which is it ignores the concept of mens rea, which is so essential for a criminal, under the criminal law. Therefore, a person to be held guilty should have the intent to do this wrong. However, in Benami transactions, you'll find a lot of people who are under the control of the real owners and who are coerced to hold the properties in their names, so they cannot be held to be the guilty parties. It targets an innocent Benamidar. The provisions discourage disclosure by persons having knowledge about Benami transactions, because if a person would disclose, invariably he would come under the offense of abetment of a Benami transaction. The bill does not provide for an incentive-based action by the implementing authorities. No attempt has been made to harmonize the bill with the United Nations, with the second ARC and United Nations Convention Against Corruption. In today's discussion, we have had a lot of speakers and the participants here who have lamented the inaction by the government. And here also, the proposed bill again suffers from the same infirmities which are afflicting the entire fabric of the real estate legislations existing as well as proposed. And whatever legislations we do have, the implementation is missing, thus proving to be very harmful for the country. The inaction of the government has led to India being ranked 8th amongst 151 countries in the volume of outflow of black money. Perhaps our legislators want India to reach the top-notch place as far as this list is concerned. The thriving existence of this parallel economy in India has been studied and recognized by the World Bank in its study called the Shadow Economies Across the World. According to this study in 2006-2007, about 15 lakhs crores of rupees worth amount was being taken out of the country which was an unaccounted money. This formed in the year 2006-2007, this formed about 1/4 of India's GDP. Certain measures are urgently required to be undertaken by the government. However, I feel like a lot of speakers have lamented the inaction of the government, regulatory bills are being taken out. However, I feel that the need of the hour is for the private initiative to come together and to take a move forward instead of consistently waiting for years together for the legislators and the government officials to take action. The need of the hour is for the real estate players to look beyond the immediate gains and focus to look beyond and to focus on consolidating the land laws, probably have a centralized agency where all the organizations of the real estate can combine their finances and improve the status of the country internationally. Thank you.